And today's bootcamp event is based around our Leads to Loyalty system, which is a proven framework for marketing your accounting practice. So if you come to our first session today, we've just gone through the plan stage of the marketing journey, if you like. The next stage is Attract, which is what we're going to be talking through today. We've also got Engage, Convert and Retain sessions coming up today as well. And we've brought in lots of accounting experts, industry titans, to share their knowledge and tips with you, including SuccessWise, DiviPay now, Wheel, Ignition and Toa Global. So let's get into the session today. This Attract stage of the framework is all about how you will attract ideal clients, your dream clients. So it's about getting people to know you, getting complete strangers to be aware of your brand. So you need to capture their attention, get them aware of you. So we brought along two experts in this field. We're going to have a Q&A session on how to use social media to build your personal brand and, importantly, attract new clients as well. So today we're joined by Trent McLaren, Head of Strategic Channels at Wheel, previously DiviPay, like I mentioned. So thanks a lot for coming along, Trent.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Trent was named Thought Leader of the Year at the 2017 Accounting Awards and has nearly a decade of industry experience under his belt. So really great to have you here. And we've also got Rachel Fisch, founder of Fischbooks.inc. I was really happy to meet you in person a few weeks back at Xerocon New Orleans, which was awesome. Thanks a lot for coming along, Rachel.
My pleasure. Thanks,
of course, we can't forget Matt. Sorry to cut you off. Can't forget Matt either. Hosting this session today is Bizincx's very own Matt Wilkinson, CEO of Bizincx and one of the brains behind this whole summit as well. So it's going to be a really interactive Q&A session for you as well. So in today's session, it's going to be how to create your standout profile, how personal and business social media work together, what to post, where and when, and some things to avoid as well. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into it. The session is being recorded. I've just double checked that. Yep. And we'll send that out. I know this whole summit today is going to be a lot of information, so you can go back over anything you've missed. Please send through any questions you might have as we go along. So bring up the Q&A or the chat panel now. Feel free to send us a hello message and check it's all working. Please send through any questions as we go, and Matt can ask the guys as we go along and discuss them. Any resources or links we mentioned, we'll paste them in the chat or send them out afterwards. And the first resources coming up, we're going to share with you Bizincx Marketing Scorecard. You can get a quick assessment of how you're currently doing based on the Leads to Loyalty framework we're going through. And more importantly, it's not just an assessment of how you're currently doing or what you are and aren't doing. It's resources to support you improve your marketing too. So there's a lot in that. Please feel free to grab that quick scorecard as well. And without further ado, we'll get into the session today. So I'll stop sharing my screen and let you guys chat. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Anthea. And yeah, thanks for coming along today, Rachel and Trent. I guess social media, I talk to a lot of accountants and bookkeepers about marketing all the time. And of all the things that's misunderstood, it's the two S's that are the worst. So it's SEO and social media are the things that are really misunderstood. SEO, no one really understands that, so that we can put that to one side. And but social media, I think, is one of those things that it's really powerful, but really misused as well. And I think that people using doing the right thing at the wrong time, or the wrong thing at the right time, and all of that. So I think it's good that we're focusing particularly on this, like attracting people to your brand stage. And I guess the kind of bit of scene setting first would be just like in general. I'll start with you, Rachel. Like, why do you think accountants and bookkeepers should use social media?
Sure. So first of all, I am experiencing a bit of a delay, so please be patient with me. I can hear you, but it's just a bit of a delay. So first of all, I think that, prior to social media, it was really boots on the ground. It was direct mail outs. It was like, how else do you get, the word about your firm out? Social media is the easiest and fastest way to be sitting at home and be able to market, to literally have a global market, from your living room, basically. So I think that some presence is kind of required at this point by all professionals. I think what we'll dig into a little more throughout this session is what you need to be posting and where, how some of the platforms are different. I think my biggest golden rule, or kind of your guiding light, is be authentically you. So wherever you're posting, whatever you're doing, just make sure that your character shines through, your personality shines through, because that's what's going to attract clients to you through social media anyway.
Yeah, I like it. And I think that people focus too much on the media part of social media, like pushing out content, rather than the social part, which is about people. So I think that's a really good one to raise at the start. Trent, maybe as someone like me who's not a practitioner, looking at it from the outside, why do you think firms should be using social media?
I think to a lot of the points Rachel said before, but I think having a presence and meeting clients is one aspect, but I think networking and meeting other people in your industry is also the other part of it. You see so many people build friendships through social media, and that's something that people haven't been able to do before. Apologies for that bell. I'm gonna get that when I finish this question. And yeah, so whether it's networking, finding new clients, or whatever it may be, there's a lot of different ways people can and should use it, and that's one of the main reasons I'd say is look at other ways to meet people outside of your geography, outside of your town, in that sense. Yeah,
and like, I mean, I'm not an accountant, and so it's not necessarily exactly relevant. But point in case there is, like you said in the past, Rachel, your options, your routes to market were quite limited. What we can do with social media is literally talk to almost anybody. And we've got a global partnership with one of the big accounting vendors, which happened because I just reached out to one of the country managers through LinkedIn, started a conversation, and that's resulted in a huge partnership for us. You go back even 15 years or certainly 20 years, that was impossible. You could send a letter to that company or something, you wouldn't get a response. You've got a direct line to, so it's not just about customers. There's all these industry connections as well, which is incredibly powerful.
I built my whole, I guess my career in the last, and I know it's been a decade, I'm feeling very old when I hear that out loud, but my early days of getting to meet a lot of people in accounting was through social media, and it took me to places I never thought I'd go. Like, I've spoken on conferences in Eastern Europe, in Latvia, because people found me on social media talking about how to all the top things happening in accounting at the time. That would never have happened before, but all it took was one blog post on LinkedIn to land in front of the right conference organizer in a country that doesn't speak English, might I add. So I was people just getting a translated version of my story. But yeah, I couldn't have done any of that without that sort of power and reach social media provides. Not that I have a target customer in Latvia, I just wanted to go for the fun of it. So yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess my second question is somewhat related to that. I'll go back to you, Rachel, is what do you say to accountants and bookkeepers who say social media isn't for them?
I think that if they are on social media personally, and most are, then it is for them. Because again, in keeping with that line of authenticity, if this is a platform that you're already familiar with, if this is, people that that you're aware of, there's no reason why you can't use a format that you already use and essentially build, a sales funnel out of it. I love, and thank you for bringing that up, Trent, that this is not just about being a client attraction, although that is the theme, for today, for what we're talking about. But I think that it's equally as important to build those communities. And so whether you're building a community with other, bookkeepers and accountants, that's actually how I started. I was teaching QuickBooks at the time when I first came up with Fischbooks, again, a decade ago. So I'm with you, Trent. We're both old. But we would do these webinars, and then there wasn't a place for us to just hang out after. So, created a Facebook group, and that's how that got started. But then it starts to feed into, well, there are skills that I have that other bookkeepers and accountants might want. So maybe there's an opportunity here, but then that same thing can go with, your client base. So I actually just secured and wrapped up we closed on an acquisition last week, an accounting firm that focuses on real estate agents and brokers. And part of the draw of that was the education and community component that they had with real estate agents. So they have a 3,000 member Facebook group, which again, you know, fine tune it, curate it, start building it into a sales funnel. And that is a huge draw to be able to tap directly into the community that is exactly, you know, the ideal client profile that we're looking for.
And I think there's two different ways to talk about social media use. And I think groups is a big one that a lot of people are familiar with. There's so many bookkeeping accounting groups, especially whether you're in Australia, New Zealand, or in North America, there's heaps over there as well. But there's different ways we talk about social media in terms of our acquisition and how we attract. Building the community is a great way to do it if you've got the strategy and the plan to do that. And then obviously using your own personal profile and brand to attract and put information into the realm of social. Now, you know, where you post it, which I'm sure is a question we've got in our list, is another story. I focus very heavily on places like LinkedIn and Facebook. Facebook primarily because the communities are there. If those groups didn't exist, I probably wouldn't push into Facebook, but I do in LinkedIn because everyone, at least professionally, for the people that I'm trying to reach and get in front of. And I think that's really key. Like, who do you want to speak to? Who are you trying to get your message across to? Determines where you want to share that information and content. If it's beauty salons, hairdressers, like you're into hospitality, that probably is something a little bit more visual. That could be, dare I say, even things like TikTok, which I'm not across at all. Or, you know, places like Instagram, Snapchat and the rest versus, you know, you want to deal with, maybe it's real estate, like you said, Rachel, you know, it could be LinkedIn. It could be those places that other professionals are more interacting with more regularly, but there's no one platform for everyone. There's got to be a real, put yourself in your target audience shoes and determine where do they hang out? Where are they consuming their content from?
Interesting you talk about platform. That was going to be my next question. And TikTok particularly, right? Like, I think that'd be something that if we did a bit of a survey of people talking to, they'd be like, no way is that a place for me, right? I'm going to, when the next one of you is talking, I'm going to go and find, I know a guy, he's got 3 million followers on TikTok, right? He's a tax accountant in the US. He's got 3 million followers on TikTok, and his content is good. You know, like, it's not what I would consume, but his content is good. So I guess, interested to know, Rachel, what platforms you think are essentials. You know, I mean, Facebook, LinkedIn, as Trent mentioned, is probably the default for most firms, but what do you think maybe about that and beyond on some of the other social media platforms?
So Matt, I'm an accounting professional. As with all accounting professionals, the answer is it depends. So, and Trent already touched on this, right? So what is your end goal? Is your end goal to connect with peers? You know, I feel like, you know, as soon as you become a designated bookkeeper or accountant, like, I feel like a subscription to LinkedIn should come with that, because it's just the go-to. It's just, this is how professionals connect. You don't hand out resumes anymore. You send people your LinkedIn profile, right? It's just the new way that we're communicating at a professional level. I think that Facebook, so again, I'm older-ish, so I'm on Facebook. You know, my communities are on Facebook, my friends are on Facebook. That's not cool enough for some folks. So, you know, it's the Instagram, it's the Snapchats, it's the TikToks. And as you mentioned, Matt, accounting professionals are seeing great success in those tools, but it's, do you have the right content on the right platform to actually make an impact? And that combination is really key. And Trent, I'm going to probably put you on the spot, because there was something that we chatted about years ago, and it was essentially a very basic framework of a content strategy. And I have shared this with everybody that asks me, basically all of the ways in which you can multi-purpose the same content. So when you make content of a certain length, you can chop it up and do short, you know, Facebook videos. You can do slightly longer, you know, LinkedIn post. You can grab quick quips or hooks. Like if it was a song, it would be a hook, and make that a tweet and then link it back to your LinkedIn, right? They all have a certain purpose. They all have a certain format, and the users on each of these platforms have an expectation of how they consume it. So for example, on Facebook, anytime you do a Facebook video, I think they were saying that 85% of videos are watched on mute. So you're just scrolling through, you're like in the bathroom or wherever, right? You're looking at videos, you do not have the volume on. So you better have captions if you want your message to come through, because you know how the users consume it. And so it's know the platform and who is on the platform, and if that's a place that either your peers or your ideal client is. Know the format that your content needs to be in order to make an impact, and have a really good understanding of how those users consume that content. And you can actually have a common, as I was saying, like one large piece of content that you can slice and dice to make sure that it's kind of hitting all those spots. I will say that, again, with this acquisition, it's realtytax.ca. I've got to throw that out. They have an Instagram presence, because that's where the realtors are. I don't love Instagram. I actually deleted it because I was on too much social media. I had to cut back. But again, if that's where the clients are, then I need to step it up and I need to be in that space as well.
100%. And you're totally right that you, like, in terms of cutting it all down, I think that if you're trying to think about where do I start with this, you're sitting there going, that's great, but what content do I start with to break it down? I'd start with whether it's a longer video, even if it's only like 10, 15 minute video that you can turn into a blog, that you can turn into short little quips, and you can turn into social media posts and quotes and a whole bunch. Getting yourself recorded talking about something is generally a lot easier than you writing something. And don't be offended, but most people probably don't write content that well, and that's because you're not well practiced. Okay, I've had to write thousands and thousands of words, and the very first one I wrote sucked. It was really, really bad. But these days, like, just kind of within 30 seconds, I've like, bang, LinkedIn post, you can just smash them out. And some of that stuff might take other people a lot longer. Start with video. When you're articulating your opinion and what you know about accounting, or what you know about your audience and what you need them to know in video, you're going to be able to articulate it a lot better than what you could when you write it, because a lot of people might write things in really long format, in big chunky blocks and paragraphs, and people don't read that way anymore. We're so used to Slack, text messages, instant messages. We're so used to short form messaging that you can actually see blogs start to transform in the way that we digest it. It's a lot of short, sharp sentences. If anyone ever follows me on LinkedIn, you're welcome to. It's just Trent McLaren. You'll see a lot of my posts actually have a bit of a format in there. It's headline being similar to like your email subject line, right? It's like, what is it that you're seeing that's going to make you open or click that see more button a little bit further down? Because on LinkedIn, I know that as soon as you click that see more button, I've already won. Like, my goal has been hit. And I say this to share with you the way I think about LinkedIn posts, right? But if the headline is catchy and then there's a little bit of a sentence and you're like, oh, I really want to see what the next thing is that is written underneath that, bang, like that's all I need, because LinkedIn is then going to go and show that to 20 more people. So the more people that click that see more button on a LinkedIn post, the more reach that thing is going to have. Good example, I put up a post yesterday. It was a memory of me and Rod Drury from 5 years ago. I'd shared a little bit of a story about my time, what I was feeling at that time. People love a story. They love a narrative. I was very aware about what I was doing writing this post. It was good to relish the story and relive the moment in that sec. But within, 3 hours, it's had 4,500, 5,000 views or impressions by people in that accounting audience. A lot of people reminiscing as well, which was quite nice as a byproduct of that. But it all comes back to the narrative and the story. So in this case, headline, 5 years since I met Rod, little bit of a story, photo to go with it. Bang. It's a good little formula to just let things explode for you in the right way. As I said, it's a lot of practice to get to that point, but once you get in a rhythm of it, you actually find it can be really, really easy.
Yeah, and actually, to your point, sorry, interrupting Matt. Further to your point there, Trent, it also, you have to pay attention to how LinkedIn works, right? They only show you the top 2 lines. So if you haven't grabbed somebody's attention and not even sentences, lines, like on the
100%.
framework, if you haven't grabbed their attention in those first 2 lines, you're not going to get it. They're going to keep scrolling, you know, things with pictures and really great looking, interesting pictures. Even if you don't have a picture that goes with your story, find a graphic, you know, do a Google image search on a royalty-free, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, on a graphic that goes with it. Yeah.
Unsplash.com, they're high quality, free royalty images, like as in all the creators have uploaded those images for you to use. Unsplash.com, I actually don't use it as much as I used to, but I used to use it quite a lot for different bits and pieces. But yeah, you can get, and just search for it, you can get amazing images from there to chuck into. I mean, I've used it for my Latvian PowerPoint was filled with Unsplash. Now that I think back through it, filled with images that made no sense at the time, but yeah, it looks good.
But it grabbed their attention, right? It made them looking at the screen and not reading it. They're still listening to you. I did throw up there a hashtag. So I put vpdexperiment.com. I'm actually in Toronto right now with a team at Fischbooks, and we're doing some things with Twyla Verhelst, fantastic community builder here based out of Toronto. But she started this a couple of years ago, VPD experiment, video per day experiment, because you mentioned video, Trent, and sometimes video scares people because I don't like the way that I look. I don't like the sound of my voice. You know, I'd rather just sit behind a screen, you know, be a keyboard warrior and just be behind the screen and type words. But the challenge is you need to be getting comfortable and familiar with those things. And so she had a challenge, 1-minute video on social media for 30 days straight. It doesn't matter what you talk about. And so if you Google, or if you look for the hashtag, I think in any social media platform, it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, then you can see kind of all of these accounting professionals and their journeys in doing this video per day. And it could have just been, I had a crappy night's sleep, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to go to bed. Don't you love just grabbing a cup of tea and going to bed? You know, or it could be, you know, had a great day with my kids. Like, it honestly doesn't matter. But the point was that practice of getting used to the way that you look when you talk, getting used to the sound of your voice when you talk, and also starting to see some of those reactions to things that you're doing. And what's really brilliant is seeing people's progression, their confidence is increasing, so that you do start to see them do content videos. You do start to see them on webinars because they're not afraid of, you know, that screen facing back at them.
Totally. So this video is a great example. Matt, you can turn this video into 10 blogs. You can say, Trent quoted this, Rachel said that. Like any webinars you hold, any interviews you do with a client, like it can be repurposed. And I think the challenge firms will have is, well, who's doing that? Because it's not me, because I'm doing accounting work. I've got my team doing accounting work. Yeah, there's a balance there. You're either going to need to find someone to do it, or you're going to need to try and express that yourself. If you're a sole trader, practitioner, it's just you, then I would think about starting things that you're comfortable in, but I would push you to try and put yourself out there as well. Like, start by doing something. Social media is free. Other than your time that you invest in it, it can be free. So we haven't talked about paid ads or anything like that. And you probably won't hear me talk about paid ads unless you're in a sophisticated spot and you actually have a full campaign mapped out with a proper funnel. I'm not going to talk to you about paid ads. But in terms of building your brand, getting started doing it for free, it is just about starting, doing really bad at it until you get good at it. So paying attention to whether people are engaging in it. I don't care if I don't get 10 likes every single day or 100 likes. I'm not measuring based on the engagements I have. It's actually just about consistency. Most of the times I post, it lands fairly well. Every now and then it doesn't. Sometimes that's LinkedIn. Sometimes that's me. It doesn't matter. Just keep going. Like I said, I'm been doing it for nearly 10 years now. So like I've got close to 11,000 connections. So I guess the other part of that is regularly connecting with people as you meet them. Really helps build out your network, and not just connecting for the sake of connecting, but by the connecting to build relationship. You know, I've had a coffee, I've met people at XeroCon, we've connected, we've shared a comment, we've outside of actually posting, I actually engage in comments on other people's posts as well. Good example, I commented on something this morning in quite detail for on another post, just sharing an opinion or two. I've had a message only an hour later from someone else saying, hey, I saw your post, really liked it. Would you be interested in guest writing for us on our business, and we'll promote it to a few thousand people and whatever? I'm like, yeah, totally. Like it's all just part of the thing. Like you build exposure by just creating, putting yourself out there, sharing opinions, being respectful. Don't be a dick is probably the one thing I'd say. Like, be polite. You know, you're not there to be a troll and tear people down or anything like that, but be supportive. And you know, you'll have a good run. I hope I didn't offend anyone when I said that either.
No, all good. I think there's like two marketing fundamentals as well that run through all of that people particularly see, I guess that make it easier, right? Number one is that repetition really works, and people get scared that they're like, hey, I'm just posting the same stuff all of the time. You have to post stuff way more than you think, or not just post, email, everything, because what seems like something you've been talking about a lot, because it's internal. Other people, they're not giving it that much attention. So you need to be getting stuff out there a lot. So not just repurposing, but repeating as well. Actually, some of the most successful people, right? They just say the same few things a lot in different ways. And that's how you get your message across. Look at politicians, right? I know politicians get a real bad rep at the moment. They're brilliant at that stuff. You know, it's called message discipline. Say the same stuff. You know, you ask them a question about, hospitals. They want to talk about education. What are they going to talk about? So be on message all of the time. I
put up a post last week or the week before, and it just said 2 words. It just said spend management, but I copy and pasted it 50 times. So you had to read it about 50 times before I actually then said whatever else I wanted to say underneath that. And I had my marketing team like, what's going on there? Like, did you just twig, or why did you do that? And my response was like, it's repetition. Like, I've literally made someone read that 50 times and then told the story I wanted to tell. And now that spend management phrase for that point in time, that moment, is stuck in their head. So, it's a little bit of marketing, it's a little bit of brand. But yeah, repetition. Just make them read it over and over. They'll get sick of it, but they'll never forget what you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other bit, like, you're right about writing. Writing is much harder than people think. I think because people can write, as in they can write an email, they think they can write like copyright. 2 different things, you know what I mean? It's like we can all walk, but it doesn't make you a marathon runner or whatever. So I think that writing is hard. You need to practice. It's not that hard, but you just need to practice it, and it takes time. But you're right, like talking and being authentic, going back to your original point, Rachel, actually I feel like a lot of where people make a mistake is that they try and overwrite stuff on social, where you actually need to unlearn some of that like marketing stuff and just be like a normal person. Okay, well, I'm thinking
absolutely. I'll just add to that, Matt, if you don't mind. Yeah. And you had mentioned, Trent, like taking a webinar that you're a guest on and turning that into content. That doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be the person that turns that into the written copy. This is where content writers come in. And just like we talk to our clients about, you do the stuff that you're good at, I'll do the stuff that I'm good at. Be aware of when you're doing that too, as an accounting professional. Don't try to do everything as a firm owner or as somebody who's in the accounting industry and profession. Let the people who are good at this stuff do it. So even when it comes to content writing, if you've done a podcast, send that copy of, that recording of that podcast, or send somebody a link to that podcast who is a content writer who can take that podcast and turn it into that bits of content that Trent was talking about. You're a guest on a webinar, send that copy of that webinar and that recording to somebody who can pull out, those highlights and really make something of it. It doesn't have to be you. You just have to know who the right people are that do that.
Awesome. Well, we've kind of gone quite deep into some big topics already, and I'm thinking like bring it right back to basics, because I know some people here won't be on, maybe not even on social, right? Like, so I guess the first thing you need to do is get your profiles set up. I need to click on that link in a minute when I'm not talking.
Yeah, I'm having a laugh. It's pretty funny. Basically, I've been turned into a quote, and I appreciate the quick effort there. You exactly. Well done.
You can share that on social afterwards.
Yeah, you can share that on social. Yeah, I'm quoted as of saying it. I'm going to get shot, I'm sure.
But back to absolute basics, right? Like social media profile, I see confusion between personal profile, company page, throw groups into the mix as well. Then we've got, Facebook, LinkedIn. So I guess, you talked about it, Rachel, at the start. If you're on personal social, then why not on business? Would you use the same profile for both? How does that interact with your company profile? Can you give us a bit of depth on that, please?
Yeah, I'm challenged by this because I started with a personal profile, and then I started connecting to accounting professional folks with my personal profile. And then that network grew and grew, and I realized how many people were seeing pictures of my kids. And that's when I was starting to get a little, I think I need to separate, the professional. So I've actually pulled back from Facebook quite a bit. I don't friend anybody that I wouldn't be social with, like in person. So if I would trust my kids around you and I know you and we have that rapport, sure, I'll connect with you. But everything else, those professional connections are for LinkedIn. And so I that's the way that I kind of keep that a little personal and professional. I know some people on Facebook have a personal profile on Facebook and then a professional profile on Facebook. Another way to manage that is with lists. So there are features in each of these formats or platforms that do allow you to control who sees what. And so, it might be helpful before going all out and creating a different profile, or there's quite a bit now that you can do as a page that you didn't used to be able to do as a Facebook page. So create a Facebook page for your business and then use that profile to comment or to talk about, other things as well. And then in terms of LinkedIn, I'm also a little bit selective. Just because we have mutual contacts doesn't mean that I would hand you my resume, right? So if it's somebody that I would, see at an industry event or something like that, then I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. Twitter, anybody can follow anybody on Twitter. And so that's, I'm a little less picky, I guess, there. Trent, do you have how you balance, Trent, you're all one person, Trent the professional from Trent the personal?
Yeah, if anyone has unfortunately seen a lot of my stuff over the years, it's a mixture of the beach, the cafe, the accounting conference, the office environment. Everyone knows I love a good, strong coffee, and then I like my alcohol to be the same, I guess, just short and strong. So, and I don't think that's a secret to many people if they've, seen or heard or hung out with me before. It's one or the other in that sense. I enjoy being at a town. I think this comes back to what I said before about telling the story. I think there's a story I'm telling about, and they're all real, authentic stories. You're not making things up or anything along those. I haven't reached that level where I've needed to do that yet. So I'm going to keep doing it this way for the moment. But yeah, you just keep telling good stories. So if it's a story about what's going on in your business, it could be a client story. It doesn't always have to be about you. Sometimes I just share screenshots of people saying how awesome Wheel is as a product to use. It's just I really love this thing, man. You're doing a great job. Cool. Screenshot, posted to LinkedIn. I'm like, how good's this? And then that sometimes is enough to get a good bit of buzz around it. And it's doing a few different things. You're sharing other people advocating for things that you're believing in. So if you've got, and they're always better. I think, Deb, you mentioned a comment before about being authentic, whether it's me being authentic or just sharing authentic stories and messages, is equally as impactful. So if you've got a client that sends you an email saying, I bloody love you, man, I couldn't do this without you, and that was the text or the email, that's an easy screenshot. And the reason I screenshot it as opposed to sending it to a marketing person, A, it takes me 2 seconds to screenshot it and post it. B, when it looks like a marketing thing, I actually more likely to scroll over it and gloss over it because I'm like, oh, this looks too pretty and too perfect and fabricated. But when I send you a raw screenshot, it's a believable story because you're like, unless I've somehow fabricated that, but I haven't. It's a believable story and it looks like something that we can all relate to. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. I've seen that. That's really cool. So yeah, I find telling good stories, celebrating moments, milestones, congratulating people, sharing experiences, tell the story, always tell the story.
Yeah. And but here's the thing, Trent, like you and I have never met. We've connected several times. We've, collaborated and stuff before. But I also know, and this is why authenticity is so important. I know that the day I meet Trent, he will be exactly the same person that I've seen on his posts and that he has represented through his content. And I really like Mark's comment here. I don't think I separate it all. I'm my business is me, for better or worse. But remember, people do business with people. And so it's letting that character and that personality come through your content, your format, your videos, your pictures, whatever it is, so that when you do get the chance to finally meet in person, they know exactly who they're dealing with because they've seen that. I know that, Trent, you've probably seen it too. And it's so deflating or kind of disappointing, at least, when you finally meet somebody in person that you have known on social media and they're not who you thought they were from when you picture them and when you picture their content. And that to me is it's just disingenuous. You sound like you have a story about that, Trent.
I do have a good story about this. So I won't name names because it's a good story, but I won't name names just and you'll, I guess, hear why. But I've seen one particular person posting a lot and getting a lot of good traction and really good stuff on it. But it came across really like strong and bullish and like, power. And I met this person in real life and it was more kind and humble. And it was very different to the way I read the posts, to the point where now I like the posts even more because the person I've met was really like just kind and humble and championing and all this stuff. But then on LinkedIn is just really like, I don't know, bashing the norm of standards, which I still loved. But now we just get along really, really well. And I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be more brash and intense in real life. But in fact, it was just really pleasant and wonderful. So, yeah.
There's some really good comments coming through. Is that okay if we take...
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to say, I'll ask the question.
Okay, you go, Matt.
Yeah. Well, that was my story. I'm definitely not going to name names, but I'm similar to Deb, which is just like seeing profile pics that are obviously 10 years old. I was actually in Sydney where Trent lives, and I went to see a firm owner, and this picture was not only, I'd say, 30 years out of date, he'd also put on about 150 kilograms in the time. And when you walk in and it's just like, and you sort of like, you recognize them, but I was like, that's, you shouldn't be putting that on your website. But anyway, yeah, so I guess just before I ask the questions, I thought it was really interesting what you're saying. I think there's maybe a line which I've never thought about before, which is that there's a difference between being authentic and unfiltered, right? You can still be authentic, but filter stuff out. Like, I try and be who I am. I think it's an important part of having integrity in business. Don't pretend to be something else, even on social. But I would never post stuff about my kids or like certain aspects of my life. I do want to keep that private. That doesn't mean I'm like hiding that stuff, but I just don't want to talk about it in that context. Just like, I don't know, I don't talk about marketing for accountants when I go and meet my mates for a beer because they don't want to listen to that stuff, right? So I think you don't have to be completely unfiltered, which is, I think, maybe where people get a bit unstuck. They're like, oh, I'm not revealing all of that stuff. You don't have to, but just be who you are when you are doing what you do.
I would say intentional. It's not even about filtering. I'm very intentional about what I share and how I respond and how I be, because I'm trying to be respectful of the people I'm interacting with and everything else. Sure, I get pissed off sometimes and I really, get my gears grinded on certain things, but time and place and just understanding, that's not that person's problem or fault or whatever. And even when I see people troll at me, which doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's generally a good day because I'm here for it. Like I'm ready to just have a bit of fun and have a laugh with it. But generally it's, something else has happened to that person that day, right? They woke up bad, someone ran into their car, and then they saw me, I don't know, and they'd something twigged for them, and that was enough to get upset. And that's, that's cool. I always go with sticks and stones. If ever I get frustrated by someone's comment, I just say to myself, sticks and stones, just, say what you want. But, you can only break my bones with actual real physical hard things. So
Cool.
words are nothing. And I've had to deal with a lot of competitors over the years in the space I've been in. So like having gone through that in the early career and been through the social media juggernaut, and these days I just couldn't care because like everyone has changed jobs and roles, and we've all ended up in other places that I don't think you could put another like competing profile in front of me where I'm like, oh, I couldn't, it wouldn't matter at all.
Well, question from Sarah, which is a really good one. What's the best way, if it's not your phone, what's the best way to create a 1 to 2 minute video for social media? So I don't know, the one that jumps to my mind is Loom. Would you guys maybe concur with that?
Yeah, Loom.
Yeah, so if you're recording right on your laptop or your desktop, then Loom is a really good one. In terms of recording hardware, so if you're not using your phone instead of software, more on the hardware side, I know in North America anyway, Trent, you can probably speak to some pros down your way as well. Jason Stats and Andrew Wall have really great handheld video setups. Jason, he was at Xerocon New Orleans. It even had a little light on it. It had a little screen on it. He could edit it right on that. And it was just like, it looked like not a pen, but close. It was pretty small. So there are hardware devices that would certainly help with that. And again, don't go for perfect. Don't go for spending a ton on hardware. Go for get the practice of your face and your voice. And then, the rest will follow. In terms of software, as Matt said, there's Loom. There's also another one called Vidyard, Vidyard. That's a really great one for recording video as well.
Cool.
Jason Stats, Staats.
It's a great name for someone who does accounting videos, right? Stats.
Good question. How many takes do you do before you give up? Kelly, I aim for a one-hit wonder. I'd prefer to do it once because I need to get on with my day and do other stuff, but it takes a lot of practice to get to that stage. So maybe it's 2 or 3, but as soon as I'm happy with one, I'm doing it. I'm not, even if you're stuttering, like I expect most people will do an and an and it won't be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. I think if anything, I've said like, be less perfect, be more raw, be more authentic. It doesn't matter if you stutter or stammer, just be you and get it out and just hit send. My wife always describes me as someone that does a really good job just hitting send, and it's like I just want to get it out the door so I can move on. It's off my list. So whatever it is I'm doing, I'm just looking for the quickest way to get this shipped with a quality standard in mind, right? So I've got a particular standard that I'll set to, and as long as it's not absolutely terrible and I'm looking at it going, you'll enjoy this, you'll get something out of it, and it's good to go, hit send. If it's terrible and the grammar's wrong and all that, like, so I do have standards, but I'm very fast and loose. Like I'm happy with 1 or 2. My marketing team can hate me for that because I'm like, what you care about, I don't care about, because the audience won't care about it as much as the brand team will, if that makes sense. And that's why I have a love-hate. They have a love-hate relationship with me, I'd say.
Great.
And that answers Kelly's question perfectly. How many takes do you do before you give up? 0, like 1 take, done. Get it out there. And this is why, as I said, go back to, yes, absolutely, Kelly, just do it. VPD, experiment, hashtag, search it. It's literally, you start your phone, you do it, you're done. It's shipped, as Trent said, and you move on.
Just ship it.
Connection, not perfection, is a great quote from Jackie. I don't know if you said that or not, but claim it. I think that we talk a lot about realness in marketing and Bizincx, so not just in social, but like, share a spreadsheet or something like that in your marketing. I've seen that done really effectively. There's a guy called Jason Andrew in Australia. he does some really good like teardowns, or just share like a P&L or something like that. So like people like that realness aspect of things, like share a Google Doc with a template in it. People like that realness aspect rather than polished, because they're being marketed to all the time. So I mean, I think another quote, I'm not sure who said that.
I love Jason's teardowns. They're amazing because it's just like you would go and do the research anyway, right? Not everyone, because you probably have more important and more fun things to do. But let's say you pick up a company financials, public listed company, and then using the skills that you have as an intelligent strategic accountant, tear that thing down and go, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and then share it publicly for all of us to just talk and think about. Oh man, I love that stuff. It's so good. It's the best.
Totally. I'm conscious of time because we've only got a few more minutes, and I just wanted to do a bit more kind of nuts and bolts type stuff. We've covered a lot of it.
We do have a question in the Q&A that I want to make sure we don't miss.
Yeah. Go with the question, and then we'll go on to just a little bit more about posting.
Okay. Okay. So the question is, how should we promote via Facebook? Is there any group we can post to advertise our company, or any other ways to do so? So as I mentioned, I said the first thing, create a business page, start posting with that. People will start to see your content, start joining groups where your ideal profile is, or professionals of similar interest. So there's, again, those couple of angles that you can go. Creating ads, like as Trent was saying, paid ads on Facebook might not be where you want to start. You want to start kind of building that community, building that awareness. And again, consistency, post consistently and repeatable, the same thing over and over again, and your message will be heard. Trent, do you have any other tips on the starting to promote by Facebook?
My comment was really just to build the muscle, which is kind of what you're alluding to. It's, if you're going to do paid ads, you use a specialist to help you do that, and have a funnel, have a plan, have a strategy. Don't just jump in and go, yeah, I'm going to boost this post because LinkedIn says I should boost it because a few people don't pay attention to that crap. Actually have someone help you with paid stuff if you're going to go down that route, but you're going to need a much bigger plan than just deciding I'm going to turn paid ads on today. Build the muscle, just build that muscle of posting and creating and getting in that rhythm and just finding your feet. I run sessions with my team all the time on creating LinkedIn posts and content. Whenever I do that session, I challenge them to spend 15 minutes per day writing a LinkedIn post and just hitting send on it. If you spend more than 15 minutes on it, you've wasted your time, because most people are only going to spend 15 to 20 seconds on it. So if you spend 30 minutes, 60 minutes trying to craft the perfect post, you're wasting good, valuable time, and you'll just get overloaded. You're like, I can't do this for 60 minutes every day. So if you can build that muscle of being able to ship a content post in 10 minutes, because it's a quick photo of me having a coffee with a mate next to the ocean, that's a typical post for me. That's quick and easy, right? Like that's all it has to be. Chris, good question on multiple. I actually post natively. I'm a little bit old school. I posted with other things in the past, but I find I'm now trying to I have to build up a big content library, right, of things I'm trying to share more regularly on particular themes. So if you've got a bigger strategy at play, then yes, you could use tools like I've used Meet Edgar, I've used Hootsuite, I've used Sprout Social, for that. But for the stuff I do day to day, I actually natively post myself. And that may sound daunting because you're like, I'm not going to have that time to do that. Look, I don't post all the time now, but I've been doing it for 10 years. So I can afford to take a couple of days, I don't know, a day or two or a week. Like no one really cares if I'm there or not. They see it, they like it or they don't. So yeah, but natively posting.
What I will say is that if you are going to use those tools, pay attention to how the posts show up in the platforms that they end up posting in. In some cases, having the same post across multiple platforms. And again, you still want to be mindful of which platform is the best for which type of content. So this is where I'm not a fan of those. And I'm like, Trent, I post natively on the platforms because I know that the messaging is going to be different for each of those as well. But sometimes the image doesn't show up. It just shows up as a link. And so then the Twitter experience is terrible. So if you are going to use those tools, which again, I don't love because you want to make sure that the content is specific to the platform. But if you are, make sure that you're aware of what that posting looks like when it goes out, and if it's actually effective or not.
That's largely why I post natively, because it looks like trash when I post it through a streaming platform. Even when I'm uploading videos, because we do use subtitles when I'm in the mood to do it. Otherwise, I actually just don't share the video if I don't put the subtitles on a lot of the time. There's some really good tools for that. If you think, where do I start with subtitling? I use Kapwing, Kapwing, Kapwing. It's free, which is good for those people that hate paying for things, for a certain amount of credits. And it's good for helping you get subtitles on short videos to use on. I use them for LinkedIn, and yeah, works really well.
Awesome.
Cool. Maybe time for any more questions, fire them in. One more question from me would just be, is there an optimal time to post? How often should you post? Just a little bit more about that kind of timing. So maybe you, Rachel, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there are some analytic tools, and I think that Hootsuite actually has a bit of an algorithm in terms of where, like, it can recommend what the best time of day for you to post based on the reactions that you get to existing posts, based on who's looking at your stuff. So I think first of all, it's never Monday at 8 a.m. Nobody is paying attention to social media at Monday at 8 a.m. But I think one for me was like Tuesday at 10 a.m. and then like Wednesdays at 2 or 3. But there are tools that can help you better understand when you're getting the most reaction from your posts, because you want to be posting it fresh during that time. Trent, you have any ideas around that?
Look, I normally look at, like, what time are you checking social media, or what time is your audience checking social media? It could be the morning, it could be the afternoon. I posted yesterday afternoon at 3:34, which normally I wouldn't do, but yeah, it depends on the content, depends on who you're trying to reach. I don't always do the weekends. That seems a little pointless. I do Saturdays every now and then, or I've shared, I don't know, I just shared stuff because I felt like it sometimes. But I do try to stick within business hours. Just think about it. When do you check your phone and check social? Is it lunchtime? Is it the breaks that you take? Is it after work? Is it public transport? So I don't actually mind an 8 a.m. post, because I figure some people are on the train going to work maybe, or whatever it may be. But just try to get in the head of your customer. When are they likely to be checking social media?
I was just going to say, because realtors work nights and weekends. So that's going to be a time. Again, it's scheduled posts. That doesn't mean that I have to be doing it live. I can certainly schedule them to launch later. And don't worry about posting things multiple times, because if somebody doesn't catch it as fresh content at 10 o'clock in the morning, they may catch it as fresh content at 10 o'clock at night.
Awesome. Hey, we could go on. It's been really cool chatting to you all. Are you happy to share maybe like your LinkedIn or anything like that if people want to connect with you? Or maybe just bang it in the chat as we wrap up, and then people can see you in action above all the stuff that you've been talking about. Cool.
Done.
Sure, we'll do.
Yeah. Feel free to enjoy all of my random fun. Welcome to the ride, is what I'm saying.
Awesome. Thank you all for such a fun session. We're going to wrap it up there. You'll have I can see you got their LinkedIn there if you want to reach out directly. Otherwise, we'll send all the recordings and resources as part of the bootcamp after this as well. So we'll say a hearty thanks and goodbye to Trent and Rachel. And for the rest of you joining the rest of the summit today, up next is Matt Wilkinson. So we'll go jump in that session and keep it going. Thanks very much to everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.